It's the 10th of July, 1943. Operation Husky has begun. Allied forces, pushing up from bases in liberated Tunisia, are assaulting into southern Sicily to begin the campaign against Hitler and Mussolini's combined forces in Italy. Gela, a small coastal town, is the site of our beachhead, about 85 miles by road to Syracuse. The 1st Infantry Division have hit the beaches, making landings with infantry platoons and transport vehicles, followed by a supply and logistics train. During the night, the 82nd Airborne parachuted northeast of Gela, setting up behind enemy lines to prevent enemy counterattacks on the beach invasion. In this battle, I have control of a combat patrol from the 1st Infantry Division, 2 infantry platoons, a scout cavalry team, and a couple of light tanks. We need to push northeast toward our airborne allies to help them reinforce at Hill 1056, a key fortified position overlooking a highway running away from the beachhead. The first step is to seize a bridge to bisect Highway 115 and intercept enemy reinforcements. I'm starting the battle with the cavalry section, but about 5 minutes in I'll get access to a platoon of infantry with a tank, and then 10 minutes in I'll get an additional platoon with 2 more tanks. My objectives are to occupy both the south and north sides of the bridge, to destroy as many Axis forces as possible, and ideally to keep friendly casualties below 20%. Let's take a look at the battlefield. The bridge is flanked on both sides by an expected Italian defense group, entrenched positions with heavy weapons expected. There are 2 main avenues leading to the bridge, a farm road, which looks a bit vulnerable, and a riverbed that is dried up for the summer after a lack of rain. A number of orchards and small farmyards clutter a slower but safer approach to the bridge, and I'll use that as my path of ingress. While I'm working only with a cavalry section at the start, I'll set my Khoi team as spotters on a nearby house, and tuck my mortar team behind it. I'll post an MG-armed scout car on the road near the farmhouses here to lock the main road and support my command team a bit. Meanwhile, I'll push my smaller convoy of Willy Jeeps up to the central orchard. I've got a spotter team and a sniper team, both of whom will crawl up to an overwatch position here, hopefully remaining unseen while they start spotting targets dug around the bridge. As soon as I can ID the enemy strong points and or any MG or AT positions, I'll burn half my mortars on those positions to soften them. Then, as soon as my infantry platoon and tanks arrive, I'll start setting them up, but I won't push until I've finished thorough recon and built up a full-strength assault force. I want fire superiority from the get-go. With my full force ready, I'll set my sniper team to weapons free, rain down the second half of my mortar rounds to further soften and suppress the enemy, and start my assault. First platoon will push up the center orchard with my MG Jeep and 1 Stuart tank. My second tank and scout car will creep up the road, suppressing targets on the north side of the bridge and at the T intersection. Second platoon will cross the riverbed and apply pressure to the south side, pushing up with fire team bounding. If all goes well, we'll know exactly which Italian positions to put the most pressure on, and we'll overwhelm them with fire, dividing their response and confusing their target prioritization until we're right on top of them. Let's see where we land. Kicking into gear, my scout car moves forward to the farmstead, while the column of jeeps push toward the edge of the vineyard. My scouts dismount and begin moving toward their observation posts. While the weapons team unpacks their mortar, Khoi moves into the observation post. From the farmstead, the scout car spots someone. An Italian and an unknown number of friends have foxholes at the end of the road at the intersection, fortifying it and watching my advance. He opens fire, initiating the pre-battle skirmish. By now, we've already begun spotting Italian positions around the highway. No heavy emplacements spotted yet, so I'm staying my hand on the mortars. While my scout teams creep forward, discovering just how exhausting it is to crawl even 50 meters with your full kit, my first platoon of infantry arrive with a Stuart tank. They set forth to their base of fire position, making sure that they lag behind the spotters to give them enough time to creep in. Meanwhile, the scout car picks up more targets, panning a few bursts across the hedgerows, but still conserving ammunition for the main assault. By now, a much more substantial Italian defense force is materializing before me. It seems a robust line has been drawn along the hedges by Highway 115. They also have clusters of walled foxholes to either side of the bridge, and an even heavier trench dug on the southeast side of the bridge. No MG or AT positions sighted yet, but the scouts are nearly at their stations. Suddenly, an Italian Breda M37 MMG opens up, killing my Jeep's 50 cal gunner and panicking the driver. As he retreats, the scout car opens up, missing just high of the MG position. Adjacent Italian units open fire on the scout truck. It's inaccurate, but shots ping off the side of the light armored hull, and the scout car team are rattled. They start to fall back. My spotter team also has a Springfield armed sniper who starts taking shots at Italian riflemen, hoping to keep their heads down while the scout car pulls back. The recon team, though, starts taking return fire from the Italians on the south side of the bridge, including a second MMG. So they reposition and go silent for a bit, up until the assault begins. First platoon hastens toward their base of fire, while Coy calls in spotting rounds from my mortar, and we prepare to bombard the entrenched position on the south side of the bridge. After discovering 2 MMGs the fun way, we're blessed by the reveal of a 47mm L32 Canon, an Austrian-manufactured infantry and AT gun that the Italians use. Thankfully, however, 2nd Platoon arrives with 2 Stuart light tanks, and we're ready to begin the assault. We now have confirmation of 2 MMGs, one here and one here. We also know of 2 infantry platoons, here and here. And we've spotted 2 47mm infantry guns, here and here. We also may have eyes on the Italian command element, which our snipers will engage momentarily. One of the infantry guns lands a kill shot on my scout jeep as it repositions, telling me that my backfield is visible and any troop movements there need to be quick and clever. The recon team opens up, and company command, XO, and 1st Platoon open fire. The scout car can now actually open fire through a keyhole after repositioning away from the enemy guns. One of my Stuarts pushes forward, keeping the snipers building as a line of sight blocker from the enemy AT guns, while my artillery continues to bombard them. I expend the second half of my mortar rounds, pressuring them, while my infantry assault into an optimal firing position. The Italians at the hedge begin peeling back in a structured retreat to their entrenchments. Now the general charge is sounded. And 2nd Platoon plunges into the riverbed. They'll follow the riverbed and cover for a ways before pushing up and assaulting out of it. The 47mm infantry guns open up on 1st Platoon's base of fire, wounding one man and pinning Bravo Squad. Meanwhile, the Stuarts both find a home in the cover of the winery, and they rain fire on the hedgerow troops, including the savage shotgun blasts of canister shot. 1st Platoon's base of fire picks up steam as the squads all reach the orchard walls and lay down suppressing fire, attempting to gain fire superiority, though the 47mm guns continue to hammer 1st Platoon's position, wounding more men. The Stuarts let loose a cross-fired pair of brilliant shots, the first nailing the Crossroads MMG position, and the second nailing the Italian trench line, scoring 1 or 2 or more kills in each spot. 2nd Platoon begins to crest out of the riverbed, and the most critical act of the battle begins. They advance slowly on the Italian line, keeping their heads down and dumping bounding salvos of fire onto the enemy. The central Italian position begins to fold, and the infantry platoon begins a full retreat back to their entrenched position at the crossroads. American tanks and infantry shower their retreat with fire. Arrogantly, I push the scout car forward to join, and it leaves its useful keyhole to expose itself. While it does lay down effective fire, the second AT gun, which I haven't seen in a while now, reveals itself. It scores 2 direct hits, one killing the gunner and stunning the vehicle, and a second shot to finish off the gunner. 2nd Platoon's infantry push continues strong, without casualties, as they assault the south bank of the river crossing. 1st Platoon's position continues to get pounded by the enemy 47s. Morale is low, at least a half dozen men have some kind of injury, big or small. It's time to tip the scales with more drastic action. All 3 Stuarts push forward, suppressing the known AT gun positions. Just as the 1st Stuart, the one tasked with suppressing AT gun 1, temporarily crosses behind a tree, that gun sneaks off a shot. It nails my 3rd Stuart, getting partial penetration just under the turret ring. The shot kills the tank driver and panics the crew. As my 2nd Stuart emerges from behind a tree, it retaliates with canister shot. The driver's sacrifice may have turned the tide, however. With one gun silent, the first platoon resumes fire. The second platoon reaches the tree line on the south bank and closes in for assault. With grenades flying, they obliterate the second 47mm gun position. The tide turns. The Italian position folds fully. Troops on both sides are in full retreat for the trenches, or the edge of the map. Laggards drop to their knees and surrender before 2nd Platoon's valiant onslaught. Stuarts 1 and 2 unleash more salvos on the retreating coastal troops. With the final assault in the trenches to the south, the battle concludes. The north and south sides of the bridge have been captured. We've killed an acceptable number of the defending Axis force, though it could have been better if we had maybe pressed the advantage more and killed more of them before they could retreat. But notably, I failed the optional parameter objective and lost more than 20% of my force. But just barely. In fact, I think I was actually still in the green with that objective until the final trench assault, where 2nd Platoon lost 2 or 3 men to a grenade. Still, I consider my biggest mistakes to be, first, pushing that scout car out of cover for greedy kills, costing me the vehicle and its team, and second, not shifting 1st Platoon away from the trees when it was clear that the 47mm rounds were hitting those trees and splashing onto them, killing them. I disagree a little bit with the 1 tank loss marked here. Stuart 3 lost its driver, but was otherwise okay. The crew abandoned the tank in a panic, and so technically had the game lasted 1 or 2 more rounds, the crew would have simply remounted the undamaged tank as soon as they gathered their wits. What matters, however, is that the bridge at Highway 115 is mine. The Axis garrison force is in retreat, and I kept casualties to about 22 or 23%, just barely missing the 20% mark. And only 14 Italian defenders were left alive out of the original 83, which makes my ratio pretty significant. Next mission will continue the invasion of Sicily 9 kilometers inland from the beaches at Gela, where a rifle platoon from the 505th Parachute Infantry of the 82nd Airborne, deep behind enemy lines, is tasked with investigating possible Axis activity by none other than the German Hermann Göring Division, with the hopes that we can foil any imminent counterattack on the hard-won ground. Thanks for watching. Until next time.